Hello, and welcome to another episode of Thrive Like a Parent podcast. I have a repeat of someone who I honestly just had to have come back on because all of you loved our podcast with Sara. And not only that, but I'm a huge fan. I love Sara when I tell people about you. Like I was telling someone at the baseball park last night, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm having Sara on my podcast today this morning. And I always say, I'm having the Vagina Whisperer on my podcast because clearly, like, that's a staple name, right, for you. And they're like, someone was just talking to me about her today. And I was like,
I love
because,
that.
right? Isn't that the best? Because what you do is so specific, it's so important. And there's not many individuals talking about it to the extent that you are talking about it. And last time you were on the podcast, we dove into all the questions that I kind of frankly wanted to ask you myself and pick your brain, which if I had those questions, then I knew everyone else would have those questions. Dr. Sara Reardon is here today because she has helped thousands and thousands of women who are suffering from pelvic floor issues or incontinence issues or just the musculature or painful sex or moving through pregnancy to make sure that their anatomy and muscles and all of that stuff remains as it should, right? Either pre-labor, post-labor, like all the different things. And I could not be more excited that Sara has written a book. And writing a book is definitely so time consuming, not the easiest thing. You know, we have all of these thoughts in our head and our brain, and we try so hard to teach our communities all the things that we want to get out into the world. But to then sit down and like almost slow down your brain enough to like organize it, put it in
Yeah.
chapters, and make sure that it's concise and doing the right thing and saying the right thing and making sure everyone understands it. Like it's not an easy process. And that book is coming out soon. And so, Sara, I want you to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, even though I just kind of boasted about you, and remind them who you are, what you do, how long you've been doing it, and all the different things. And then I want to jump into the book.
Awesome. Thanks, Brooke, for having me. And I'm super excited to be back to chat with your community. So my name is Dr. Sara Reardon. I am a pelvic floor physical therapist. I used to live and work in Austin and Dallas, and now I'm in New Orleans, which is my hometown, same as Brooke. So we've got lots of connections from the past. And I have been a pelvic floor physical therapist for 18 years, and I've specialized in working with women with urinary leakage, painful intercourse, pelvic organ prolapse, diastasis recti, changes in their pelvic floor from pregnancy, postpartum, menopause. And there's a group of muscles in this part of our body that are playing a role in everything we do, from peeing and pooping to breathing and core work and menstruating and having sex, and nobody talks about them. And after working in this field for a decade and seeing thousands of women with issues and all of them saying, why didn't anyone tell me this sooner? I said, we need to kind of bust out of this, the current medical system and really go straight to women to help them be aware about this part of their bodies and that there's help for it if they're experiencing problems. So I started my Instagram account, the Vagina Whisperer, which, as you mentioned, is just kind of like people know the Vagina Whisperer more than they know my name, Sara.
Yes, totally. Totally. Because it's such a great, it gets to the point. It's like, we're
Like
talking
what we're
about the
talking
vagina.
about. Right, right.
And the funniest part is like on your website, you're in a huge vagina costume. So it's
Right.
like you don't really whisper, you shout. You know what I mean? But it's a great handle. It's a great name.
I love it. And so it was my girlfriends from WashU in St. Louis who gave me that name when I was a pelvic floor PT early on. And so when I started my Instagram account, it was much more based on pregnancy and postpartum stuff and childbirth preparation. And it was for my group of friends. And I think that the exponential growth and really kind of explosion of pelvic floor awareness and the growth of the social media account has really been a testament to not how funny my reels are, but really to how much women want and need this
Yes.
information and they're not getting
Craving.
it from anywhere else.
Yes, we're craving it.
Yeah. So my book is coming out, Floored, A Woman's Guide to Pelvic Floor Health at Every Age and Stage. And it covers everything from menstruation to, sexual activity to pregnancy, birth, postpartum, menopause, bladder issues, pooping issues, really kind of the education about our pelvic floor we don't get, and we don't even know that we need until often we're experiencing a problem. And then we're like, wait, I didn't know that I was doing this wrong or that I could have been changing this. And so I just really want to give people help at home on their bookshelves, something to reference to help better understand their bodies.
I look at it almost as like the encyclopedia of the anatomy that no one talks about.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, because it's true. I mean, I people say like, when should we start learning about this? I'm like, when young women start menstruating, they need to understand that there are muscles down there for them to need to relax, to insert a tampon, or using a menstrual cup or menstrual disc, that painful periods are not normal. Like, we've been hiding this part of our body and really feeling ashamed about it and being taught that that's what the normal is since we were young women. And then when we have problems, we don't know who to go to or like feel courageous enough to talk about it because we've been told we should not talk about it.
Yeah.
And then again, when women start becoming sexually active or getting involved in sports, I mean, this is really when pelvic floor issues start to pop up, is at a really young age. And we maybe get a little bit of period education. We maybe get some sex ed depending on where we live or where we go to school, but we don't get pelvic floor education. And that's really kind of what I want to change for young women and women of all ages.
I love that. That actually makes me clearly, I am going to get the book, but that actually makes me want to get a copy for Carter's daughter, who's 13.
Hmm.
And I hadn't thought about that before. And I don't know how to say this without keeping her, girl things private. But I thought there was the talk on her side with her mom, and I had mentioned something to her last summer in Florida when we were together, and I was like, no. And like some of these things I don't know how to talk to my boys about, right? And I have Carter for that. But there is nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to the anatomy and understanding your body. And so I like got the pictures out and I sat up there with her in the bedroom and I was like, this is this and this is that and this is what this is
Yeah.
called. And you actually have to, you actually have this hole and that hole. And like those were the things that I thought when Carter and I were told, yes, I had the talk. I was like, okay, we got the talk, like we had the thing. But then I realized that wasn't the full talk. We didn't have the
Right.
full talk. And I think it just goes to show that we can't shy away from those hard conversations. And I love that you brought that up for young women. And I think I 1,000% will give this book to Lila and just say, I'm going to give this to you. And she might feel uncomfortable or like a little embarrassed or whatever. And I'll just say, read through it. And if you have any questions, then come ask me.
Yeah.
But if you're curious about anything, like I said, this is the encyclopedia that will help you understand if anything's going on or when you're ready or wanting, like you're saying, to insert a tampon and relax your muscles. Like this is a beautiful guide to be able, I'm sure, from start to finish, right? Young
Yeah,
adult
I mean, first period to well past your last period. Like
to
there's
leaking and
yes,
wearing diapers,
menopause and yes. And
yeah,
so totally. And this is what's interesting. And so I love that you brought that up. But I think that, I'm raising two boys as well. And if we don't understand our own bodies as women, like how can we educate
right.
other people about their bodies? So if you don't know how to like that you shouldn't push when you pee because it can weaken your pelvic floor, so that you should use a stool under your feet for pooping so that your muscles can relax and not strain with bowel movement. So if you don't know that like lube is okay to use for sex or that sex shouldn't be painful, I mean, if nobody educates you about those things because we don't know them, then how can we educate and change the experience for the next generation? And I
100%.
think even our parents, it's like, oh, well, they were just told this is just what it's like for women after babies or women with aging. Like you just have to leak urine. You're just going to end up in diapers. I mean, when you go to the grocery store, there's an entire aisle of incontinence products.
Mhm.
And I think what was really saddening for me, I was like,
And
wait,
your book should be next to the
I know.
incontinence product.
Like, and yeah, the book is called Floored because it's like about your pelvic floor, but it's also
Yes.
that I think people will be really amazed about what this part of your body does and like how much you can do to take care of it that you didn't even know that you could do. It's like brushing and flossing your teeth. We're told how to take care of it. We go get tune-ups every 6 to 12 months if something's wrong. But yet, because we don't see our pelvic floor or kind of genitals or private parts, we don't know how to take care of them either. And so I'm just really excited to share this. I have two boys, as I mentioned, and recently at a Mardi Gras parade a couple months ago, a friend's daughter came up to me and she was like, "Oh, Miss Sarah, like you don't have daughters. You only have two sons." And I was like, "Yeah, that's right." And she was like, "Well, that's a missed opportunity for the Vagina Whisperer to not like have daughters to teach this." And I said, "I know, but I have two sons who probably know more about the female body than most females."
Yeah.
Like they ask the questions. And I think when we talk about educating kids, it's not like one conversation. It's a trickle. I think we
Mhm.
answer their questions when they ask them, and I think we
Yes.
have to answer them honestly, and
Yes.
then see if they are curious for more.
Yeah.
But just like see if they kind of move on, then you're like, okay, that kind of quenched their
Or we
curiosity.
are, right.
But I think we want to think about it as like a trickle effect of we're sprinkling in information as they get more curious, as they get older and get closer to puberty, and not just like the one talk and then we don't bring it up again.
And as you're saying that, I'm like, gosh, now I need 2 copies because this shouldn't just be a clearly no, actually I need 3. I need 1 for me, I need 1 for Lila, and then I need 1 for the boys because how amazing is it if we raise a generation of not just females, but males who understand honestly, the female anatomy, which I
Yeah.
kind of feel is a little bit more complex than the male.
Yeah.
And then we can have more of an understanding or kindness or care or even when it comes to intimacy, like
Yes.
understanding, okay, let's work on this together as a team.
Exactly.
And it's
And that
not always about pleasure, but like
exactly.
pleasure, if that's where you want to be with your relationship, then I can't tell you how many women I speak with who are dysregulated and don't want to be touched with a 10-foot pole because they are so exhausted and tired. They just want to be in a dark room. And the craziest thing, Sarah, I was actually talking to a grandmother last night and she was like, I love your page, but the one thing that's missing is like a reel on hugs. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. Because I mention that and recommend that to my clients all the time. And the oddest part is that when we're so dysregulated and we think we don't want to be touched and we can't think about it, hugs or snuggling or maybe even leading to intimacy, it doesn't have to be intimacy, that can fully help you regulate. That can fully help you feel safe in your body when you're not doing so well. And that was a huge part of me from my own healing journey. Like I literally used to have Carter in the thick of the first 2 years I was like, can you just lay on top of me? And like, we would just sit there and watch a movie, but I needed that deep pressure. And
Yeah.
if the male understands what is going on with the female and is able to help support them, I bet that I need a dark room, don't touch me with a 10-foot pole. I bet that sentiment for women would be lessened because they know that their partner understands the anatomy and where they're at. And maybe intimacy could be a beautiful thing that does connect them and help them regulate. Because I know orgasm and intimacy is a regulator in general, right?
Right. It's interesting because I think that we call it outer course, hugging, holding
Yeah,
hands,
I
laying
love
next
that
to each other
term.
naked. And it's because it's like not all intimate touch has to lead to penetrative sex. And so I
Totally.
think what happens is we completely avoid, right? We like, don't take my clothes off. So we have no touch. And it's a very kind of binary, there are very binary options. It's like, okay, we either have penetrative sex or we don't touch at all. And there's so much
Yes.
kind of in between there. And so, and again, I think for women, it's like we feel like we carry this responsibility to be this like receptacle, this pleasure center. Like the Latin word for vagina is literally sword for sheath. Like just think about that. Like you're inserting a sword into a sheath, which is like a cover, a opening. And when we kind of understand that the vagina is actually just part of the pelvic floor muscles and the pelvic floor muscles have so much more responsibility than just the vagina, it's kind of just becomes another body part, like an ankle or a shoulder or a knee, where we can kind of talk about it. We can understand it. If there's a muscle issue like spasm or weakness, we know how to address it. And I think women I see who have pain with sex, they often feel like they're broken, like something's wrong with them, like they're failing their partners. And when I'm like, whoa, okay, first of all, that's not the case. Don't put that pressure or responsibility on yourself. Two, like this is a muscle spasm. Just like I get muscle spasms in my neck and then I get migraines. Like this is not different than that. You just nobody's ever taught you that this is a body part that just needs a little bit of TLC. And it's not rocket science. We just have never been connected with it or never been educated. And it's almost like you can see them kind of take a deep breath and be like, oh, and other women have this. I'm like, 1 out of 3 women have pelvic pain at some point in their lifetime. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, I've been doing this for 18 years and seen tens of thousands of patients.
Mhm.
And it's very disarming for them to feel like, oh, I'm not alone in this. And oh, there's help for this as well.
And you said this statistic the last time you were on the podcast, but didn't you say it's like 65% of women will have like, or by the age of 65, like
Yes.
what was that statistic that was like,
By
I
the eight,
personally think that's so important for everyone to hear again.
By the age of 65, 50% of women will leak urine. So half of us are walking around in pads, liners, diapers. It's one of the number one reasons to admission to a nursing home later in life. So is leakage of stool. And I say that not to scare women, but I say that because if you're experiencing small leaks now with a cough, a sneeze, you can't jump in the bounce house or on the trampoline, you had to kind of take stop doing jump rope in your CrossFit class. If you experience those issues now and you're once you age and you are hitting menopause where your estrogen levels decrease and your vulva and vagina get thinner, drier, less toned, you have less pelvic floor muscle support because muscles weaken as we get older. And we talk about strength training to kind of help our bodies with aging, but you need to train your pelvic floor as well. These are muscles that you need to focus on and train. So kind of really learning how to connect and strengthen them. It's something that I cover in the book as well, so that you know how at home, like what can I do to start right now? And so I just don't want folks with those little issues to think that they're going to go away because they usually don't. But kind of almost like with any type of kind of system that's just not balanced in our bodies, we need a little bit of guidance for how to improve it and some tips and tools to kind of maintain that balance. And so that's really kind of what I hope the book offers people.
I love that. Tell me a little bit about, I don't know how to ask this question because I clearly know the why of like, why did you decide to write this book? And I'm going to project and say the why would be because you knew that there was a need for people to understand this information. But the why of, I know that you stepped away from your
I
practice
did.
to invest your time into writing this book. Usually, when I have anyone on who is about to release a book, because I think it's a selfish question because so many people have asked me to like write a book. What led you to say this is the right time and the why for you of like, why is this something that I want to do and put this down on paper?
That's a great question. I actually love talking about it. So, everything that I do with respect to the Vagina Whisperer, my practice, my profession, it always comes back to one mission. And it's like, we need to change the way we're caring for women and their pelvic floors, like just hands down. So, I always come back to that. And I had a clinic in New Orleans that I started just kind of by myself and then added a few therapists. And we navigated COVID and a few hurricanes. And it was really thriving. And then I also started an online pelvic floor fitness platform during COVID. So I kind of had an online platform I was navigating and an in person clinic, and they were both going so great. And then randomly, an editor from HarperCollins reached out to me on Instagram. She was a follower. And she was like, hey, I follow you. I would really love for you to write a book. Like, I think you've got a good voice. I think you've got a good message. And there's just not a lot out there about pelvic floor health. And I said, I mean, this goes so much to the work that you do. I was like, I'm completely overwhelmed right now. Like, I'm a mom, I'm a wife. I want to take care of myself. I also want to help my businesses thrive and my team, but I don't have anything left. And I kind of had to survey what was on my plate and say, like, I do really want to write this book because I think that I don't want people to have to doom scroll on Instagram to find how to properly pee, like,
Misinformation all
or
over the
misinformation.
now.
So, and I think people consume information in different ways. Maybe it's videos, maybe it's in person, maybe it's a book, right? And so I think that we're able in medicine now to really kind of give people a menu of options, but it's also like, I can't take on another thing. So I spent 6 to 9 months kind of looking at what my options were. And I approached the 2 women who were working for me as my therapist and offered to sell them the clinic. And it wasn't like I made a ton of money. I just said, I don't want to quit seeing patients. I want to continue to work, but I'd like to work for you and have y'all run the business. And I think it just was like, I knew I was at capacity and
Yeah.
I couldn't take on more and do a good job in all of those arenas. So I had to scale back, and you have to kind of turn the page and be like, this chapter is done and I'm going to start a new one.
And it's a
And it's
hard one
all,
to
I sobbed like the night before
yeah.
I signed the papers. I mean, I remember crying because it felt like it was a baby and you were kind of
Totally.
passing it on. But I couldn't let fear be the reason that I didn't take this opportunity. And I knew it was a great one. And I love pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. I was like, that's how we grow. That's what I tell my kids to do, you know?
Yeah,
And so I spent a year like just working my tail off writing this book, and I'm really proud of it and really excited about it. And I just really want, again, it all goes back to, I think women deserve this care and we're not getting it, and we have to change that. So you just chip away at the problem, bit by bit.
totally. Would you tell everyone, and we've kind of talked about this along the way. Clearly I want this book for every single person in my family, but tell everyone who this is for, who should get this book, like who would this be most beneficial for, and why
Right.
it would be beneficial for them to have it on their shelf.
So I think one of the biggest myths about pelvic floor issues is that people think that only pregnant women, postpartum women, and aging women have pelvic floor problems. And that
Hmm.
is not the case. Everyone has a pelvic floor, all genders. Women are more vulnerable because of things like hormonal changes and birth and aging and menopause. But your pelvic floor has different needs and requires different types of care at every age and stage. So Lila, kind of as she starts learning about this now, she'll know what to look out for. Door will be cracked for like, hey, I think of something's going on, or I'm not sure how to do this. And
Yeah.
she'll feel comfortable going to you. Female athletes, high school female athletes, over 40% of them leak urine. Cheerleading, volleyball, basketball, gymnastics, all of them are at a really high risk of incontinence, and it takes them out of their sport. So imagine being a young woman who loves doing something and you're scared you're going to like leak on your uniform. And so I'm just like,
Absolutely.
I think so many people are experiencing these issues and they don't know where to go to for help. So I really think anyone with a vagina can benefit from it. I also think medical providers who don't know what to screen their patients for, like if you're seeing anyone, you need to know how to ask them about leakage or pain with sex, and then how to refer them to pelvic floor therapy. And I think people who want to be really proactive, like if you're a mom, if you're a parent, how to take care of your own body, address the issues that you might be having right now with leakage or prolapse or pain, and then also how to prevent things as you're getting older.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I love that. Will you tell everyone when the actual book is coming out? I know we can pre-order it and get some special goodies, and then
Yes.
tell everyone all the things.
So the book releases on June 10th, 2025. So depending on when you're listening to this, you can absolutely pre-order it. You can go to my website, thevagwhisperer.com/floored, and it has all the information to pre-order. And everyone who pre-orders gets 30 days of free pelvic floor workouts. So you can start your pelvic floor journey now. And these are at-home exercises. They're 10 minutes 3 times a week, whether you have pain with sex or leakage or want to be proactive, really to
And it's
help you.
virtual.
It's all at home. It's all online. So you don't have to go anywhere to see anyone. And it's a great place to get started. Even if you see a therapist in person, a pelvic floor therapist, sometimes the waits are long, sometimes it's costly. So, I really think that it's just a great opportunity to learn more about your body. So you can check that out on my website. Again, thevagwhisperer.com/floored. And then you can find me on social media, as you mentioned, dancing in a vulva costume at the Vagina Whisperer.
And we'll put all of that in the notes too, so that the link is there, and remind people if they pre-order it, they get a free month for your Hive membership for sure. Because what an awesome thing to be able to not only deep dive into the book, but then, yes, I know you give tools within the book, but to then be able to try them on, right? With a
To
guide, they can
start
try
right
them on,
away.
right? With the book. The book gives the tools to do it, but also with a guide from you virtually would be awesome. It's like a no-brainer. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. And I just really, I clearly love talking about the pelvic floor. So thank you for having me on,
Yeah.
and just love all of the work that you're doing. I think to help parents and women and moms. I think it's just we need to tackle kind of our well being from so many angles: the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the psychological. And if we are so upregulated it's hard to carve out time for ourselves to do pelvic floor exercises, to take care of our bodies. And so a lot of what you're doing helps kind of people get to that point. So thank you.
So thank you for being here and letting me shout you out and make sure everyone knows. Like, we want people to know that this book is available, and I will definitely be getting multiple copies of it. Everyone else listening to this should as well.
Thanks so much, Brooke. I appreciate you
Of
having me on.
course. Thank you for being here. And until next time, XOXO Dr. B.